Hello everybody and welcome to IPR's Game Room. My name is AC and today I'll be talking about Dream Askew, Dream Apart. Dream Askew, Dream Apart is a set of 2 games in one book written by Avery Alder and Benjamin Rosenbaum respectively. Both use the belonging outside belonging system, which was created by those two for these games. Dream Askew and Dream Apart are 2 separate games, though they have some through lines that connect them. Mainly that they both use the belonging outside belonging system, and that they are both about marginalized groups creating communities on the edge of a dominant culture, and that those groups have a precarious and hopeful quality to them. Now, these are diceless games. Instead of playing with chance, players are going to be playing with choices. There is also no GM. Instead, there is a facilitator who helps gather all the supplies and teach people how to play the game. The only supplies needed for these games are a printed out play kit, a set of writing utensils, some scrap paper or index cards, and a pile of tokens, about 5 per player. Now, these tokens can be anything, some quarters or other coins, some rocks or buttons, whatever you have on hand as long as you have enough of them. These are both games for 3 to 6 players, and sessions usually take about 3 to 4 hours, and you can totally play these games as either a one-shot or as a longer campaign. Sessions start with players reading the overview out loud for whichever of the 2 games they are playing. The overview sets the general tone and setting for the games, whether you're playing in Dream Askew's queer enclave during the slowly building apocalypse, or in one of Dream Apart's Jewish market towns right as the Industrial Revolution begins. The overview helps build that setting and set players directly in it as the game begins. Next, players pick out a role, and there are 6 of these for each game. Each role has tips for playing them, their moves, their lure, as well as options for their name, gender, look, and other aspects of their personality and abilities. For Dream Askew, these roles are things like the hawker, the tiger, or the torch. Each has their place in the community, whether that's to gather and distribute resources for a price, protect the community, or be a pillar for others to gather around. Dream Apart has the roles of the soldier, the matchmaker, and the sorcerer, offering players the chance to be a war-torn young adult, lost even back at home, a master of gossip and social order, or an unnerving mystic who speaks with the spirits of the world. Players then set out the setting elements, familiarizing themselves with their moves and prompts. The setting elements are things like outlying gangs or varying scarcities for Dream Askew and the market or unseen world for Dream Apart. Players pick these up when they want to encapsulate those elements, introducing a rival gang or deciding who's at the market today, for example. Then it's time to create your community. This is done by circling elements on your community worksheet, deciding each one as a group. This is expected to take about an hour, so don't feel the need to rush anything. Finally, play begins. As I said earlier, there are no dice in this game. Instead, players make moves listed on their character sheets. There are strong, regular, and weak moves. Weak moves will gain you a token, strong moves will cost you one, and regular moves can be done at any time. For example, for the matchmaker role in Dream Apart, a weak move is to see one of your schemes go awry, a regular move is to poke your nose into other people's business, and a strong move is to fall out of love. You can see how, by using the token system, players are encouraged to make trouble and conflict for themselves. It gives a reward for creating an interesting narrative, which I think is really cool. It's very easy in a game for players to just want everything to go well for themselves, which isn't bad per se, but I do think that this makes for much more interesting and fully collaborative storytelling. Another thing that I really like about Dream Askew, Dream Apart is how warm and welcoming the writing feels, which might sound weird to say, but these games put themselves forward as beginner-friendly role-playing games, and you can really feel that tone as you're reading through them. It really gets you in the right headspace for telling the types of stories that these games want to tell. There's also a whole section in the front of the gamebook about consent in gaming, which, as always, is very important. There's also this little mechanic that I really like, where you can pause the game to ask questions or to gently correct someone. Which I really like, since these games are about groups that maybe not everyone at the table is a part of. And the best way to learn about those different from yourself is to ask kind and honest questions, which these games really facilitate. To go with that, in Dream Apart, there's a whole glossary of Jewish words and terms, which is very helpful for me as someone who is not Jewish. There's also a list of names for all the nationalities that will probably come up in a game of Dream Apart, which again shows how focused these games are on never making you feel bad for not knowing something. But speaking of things that I do know, these games have recipes in them. Well, one recipe each to be specific. But I don't think I've mentioned this before, but before I started working at IPR, I worked in the food industry. I've been a baker, a cake decorator, worked at restaurants, all that kind of stuff. And I think that food is really important to human beings and to our cultures and society. I really think that you can learn so much about a culture by looking at their food. So having these recipes that are themed to their respective games is extremely good to me. And these recipes are there so that the facilitator or one of the players or even your whole group can come together to make this meal to sit down and enjoy before gaming. And that right there is what these games are about, that kind of community and belonging and compassion and the banding together of people against those who would see you torn apart. And I just don't think that there's a better encapsulation of that feeling than sitting down and sharing a warm meal together. So, Dream Askew, Dream Apart is available on IPR's website through the link in the description below. As always, please go check it out. They are extremely good games. Make sure to check out our Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and subscribe to our monthly newsletter. It's got all the up-to-date IPR news like how I'm going to be hosting a panel for Gen Con Online. I'll be hosting the Queer RPG Designer panel on Thursday, July 30th at 2 p.m. EDT. It'll be me and some other really cool queer folk in the industry, and all of it will be streamed live here on this YouTube channel. So make sure that you subscribe so you don't miss any of that. Or any of the other fun events that we'll be doing for Gen Con Online, all of which I will link below in the description. And remember, gamers, the matchmaker may make a very good friend, but they make a terrible confidant. Talk to you next time.